And I'm joined now by Tim Donner, Senior Political Analyst for Liberty Nation News. Tim, thank you so much for joining me today.
Always a pleasure, Michelle.
It's always a pleasure to have you on. You're a wealth of information, and we have a lot to talk about today. At the time of recording, the UAE is reporting that they have handled 3 Iranian drone strikes and one landed in the ocean. And this is while the US is negotiating with the fragmented Iranian leaders for a peace deal during this ceasefire. What do you make of this? And do you think this is going to affect President Trump and his team negotiating?
Well, I'll pull from Casablanca, that iconic movie, and say I'm shocked that Iran would fire missiles at the United Arab Emirates. I mean, they just make their situation worse every time they launch another missile. Now, this breaks the ceasefire, which, look, I don't think anybody in their right mind thought that this ceasefire would lead to anything but a delay in the process of Trump having to pretty much wipe out the country, because they've demonstrated that they're not serious about coming to the table. They send their civilian negotiators from the political side of their regime, and they appear to be somewhat reasonable, but then they take it back to their country, and the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, basically just overrules them. It appears at this point that the IRGC is calling all of the shots, because the political structure has been devastated from the Ayatollah on down, including his son, who by many accounts is either completely disfigured or even dead. We don't know yet. But look, I mean, it's not really that complicated. The news sources report on these Iranian proposals, peace proposals, almost breathlessly, when I think we know that any proposal that does not include turning over their enriched uranium necessary to build a nuclear weapon, unless they turn that over, Trump's not going to accept any proposal. If they do agree to do that, Trump might give a little bit on some other elements. But as he said over this last weekend, he said, look, we have disabled the Iranian military operations and any nuclear capabilities for probably up to 20 years. But then he said, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in making it so that they can never have a nuclear weapon.
Right. And he's not going to budge on that. So I don't know why that this is so difficult for them. But that's the one thing that they don't want to budge on.
That gives them ultimate bargaining power. I mean, look at North Korea, for example. Nobody would even pay attention to them. They'd be off on their own little world. But they're developing a nuclear weapon. Why? Because that gives them standing in the world. It gives them strength, and it draws respect just for the fact that they have the capability of dropping a nuclear bomb.
How do you think it's going to play out with the negotiations this week? And do you think that they are going to come to the table with a deal that President Trump can accept?
No. One word answer. No, I don't. They don't show any signs of relenting. Now, there is one possibility, which is the fact that this U.S. blockade has absolutely devastated their economy to the tune of $500 million a day. Now, how long can they absorb that before they become completely bankrupt? It seems to me, the only real hope of getting a deal. The Iranian, whoever's calling the shots in Iran right now, and we don't even know who that is or what group of people, except that it seems to be that the IRGC has at least veto power over anything. That they will not give up their nuclear facilities, and most of all, they're enriched uranium. They're just not going to do it. If they do, this will be a massive victory for President Trump beyond the victory that, as he says, he's already secured. He has
Right.
already eliminated Iran's capability of threatening its neighbors, of threatening Europe, of threatening the US, and of threatening world peace writ large. It's already a victory,
Right.
Michelle. It's already a victory. It's a matter of how far do you go? I mean, it's sort of like the Gulf War in some sense. You know, we mowed down Hussein's forces in Kuwait in the Gulf War in the early 90s. And then it was a matter of were we going to go to Baghdad and take down Hussein at that time? George H.W. Bush decided not to do that. Now, the question is whether Trump will go all the way. Will he take down their power plants, their power grid? Because once you do that, there's no turning back. Then you have basically sent the country back to the Stone Age.
Which is what he said he would do. And Trump, I think we've learned, is not someone to make a threat and not follow through on it. It is a card he can play. He is doing the more humanitarian thing, as we talked about earlier. But the economic pressure he's putting on them through the Strait of Hormuz is going to turn to abject poverty pretty soon. And they can't, there's only so long they can keep all of that oil in tankers and not go anywhere. And then what? You know, then they're going to have absolutely no income whatsoever. So it
Well, they
would
were
be
already facing this week, they've been facing the choice of what to do about oil storage capacity. They're
right,
running out of places to store oil because of the US presence.
right.
And so they're pretty soon going to have to decide to either give in or try to recapture some of their storage facilities, or they're going to have to cap those oil wells, which can't, it's not like screwing on the top of a bottle, you screw it on and off. Once you
Right,
cap those wells, they're
right.
they're not going to produce for a long, long
Long
time.
time.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're affecting their own economy into the future. How different would it be if you
But
did
they
pull
don't
them?
care. I think that's the thing. Is they care
They
not
don't
a
care.
whit about the welfare of their people. If they did, they wouldn't have gunned down 32,000 of them in cold blood,
Right,
which led to this U.S. invasion. It was the final straw that broke the camel's back and
right.
allowed Trump to do something that every president in the last 40 years has known needs to be done, but they couldn't or wouldn't do it
They wouldn't do
until
it.
Trump.
Right. Well, I don't think they had the fortitude, the wherewithal, or they were just too politically motivated to do something that bold and consequential. So it did take somebody from the outside to come in and do it. But do you think if that happens, you know, if it comes to the point where they're capping off their oil wells, that the people will rise up and force their hand?
Well, I've been waiting. I think we've all been waiting with bated breath for the rebels to come back out and start protesting and take to the streets again.
Mhm.
But it's not safe for them.
No,
At
it's
this
not.
point, it is not safe for them because now most of the killings that are done secretly behind
Hmm.
closed doors. And nobody is protesting because they know that, you know, the energy of those mass protests has been drained away. Now they have to take back their power eventually. You're talking about 90 million people in
Hmm.
Iran. It's an enormous country
Yes.
with an incredibly rich culture going back centuries, all the way to the Persian Empire. So
Right.
it's not a country, you know, it's not a country like Iraq that was just created out of whole cloth after World War One. It's a
Right.
real country with real people, uh, with a great deal of scholarship and success during before the days of the revolution, where anybody basically who was intelligent was set aside and
Hmm.
was, you know, just like in Pol Pot's Cambodia. Anybody
Right.
with glasses was immediately imprisoned or murdered
Mm,
because he
right.
thought they were too smart uh,
Mm,
to support the regime. Anyway, I think that it's tender hooks right now. And the ball, frankly, I don't think the ball is even in Iran's court because they have basically indicated they're not going to budge. Their proposals are all just reworked,
hmm.
warmed over versions of previous proposals until they clearly commit to, again, I hate to repeat it, but this is the single red line, the
Hmm.
enriched uranium. Because if you get rid of that, then effectively Iran's nuclear program will be sidelined for a century, probably.
Right. I mean, they're looking into the future too, though. They're looking 1,000 years down the road, having to
Yes,
continue their
yes.
Islamist regime. We're going to take a short break and come right back with Tim Donner, senior political analyst for Liberty Nation News. Stay with us.